All right, let's talk about the brilliant minds who didn't just play the game. They figured out how to beat it. We're diving into the stories of people who found these secret glitches and loopholes, the ones hidden in plain sight, and used them to completely outsmart the system. I mean, it's the ultimate fantasy, right? Stumbling on that one little flaw in the system that nobody else sees. Well, for a handful of people, that fantasy actually became their reality, and their stories are honestly just incredible. And let's be super clear about this. We are not talking about criminals here. We're talking about geniuses of observation. People who looked at a system not for what it was supposed to be, but for what it actually was, warts and all. Okay, let's get into our first one. Our first story takes us right into the flashing lights and cheesy sound effects of an 80s game show. This is where one unemployed ice cream truck driver found a pattern that, well, was supposed to be impossible to see. So this guy, Michael Larson, he got completely obsessed. For 6 straight months, he was glued to his VCR, watching old episodes of Press Your Luck, frame by frame. And that's when he found the show's massive secret. The random light board wasn't random at all. Nope, it just cycled through 5 predictable patterns. So he memorized them, all of them, learning exactly when to hit that button to land on the big money and avoid the dreaded whammy. And the result of all that homework, he walked away with over $110,000 in a single day. It was a record that stood for decades. The producers, you can imagine, were completely floored. They reviewed every second of tape, but he hadn't broken a single rule. He had just outsmarted the game itself. Of course, the system had to fight back. After Larson's unbelievable run, the producers rebuilt the entire board from scratch. They brought in a computerized system with 32 truly random patterns. And just like that, the loophole was closed for good. Okay, next up, imagine a lottery where you were pretty much guaranteed to win. It sounds totally impossible, but for a few years in Massachusetts, a group of brilliant MIT students basically turned the state lottery into their own personal ATM. It all boils down to a nerdy but super important math concept: positive expected value. See, normally when you buy a lottery ticket, you expect to lose, right? The odds are stacked against you. But these students found one very specific situation where the math totally flipped on its head. The secret was something called a roll down. So in this one game, Cash Windfall, if the jackpot hit $2 million and nobody won it, all that cash would roll down and pump up the smaller prizes. All of a sudden, matching just a few numbers paid out way, way more than it should have. And that's what created that magical positive expected value. So these MIT groups would just wait patiently for a roll-down week. And when it happened, bam, they'd spring into action. They used computer programs to figure out how to cover the most number combinations, and then they'd buy hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of tickets all at once. It was this massive brute force attack, but because the math was on their side, it was basically a guaranteed profit. And here's the kicker. They weren't cheating. They were just buying a crazy number of legal tickets. The state lottery was stuck. They couldn't fix the loophole without killing the game's most popular feature. So in 2012, they just gave up and shut down the whole game. All right, from lotteries, let's move to something we all dream about, basically free travel. This next story is all about how one guy turned cheap pudding cups into first-class plane tickets around the world. So, meet David Phillips. You might know him as the pudding guy. Back in 1999, he spotted this healthy choice promotion where you got airline miles for sending in barcodes. He did the math and realized that the cheapest item was a 25-cent pudding cup. This meant he could basically buy airline miles for half a cent each, which is just a tiny fraction of what they're actually worth. And he didn't mess around. He went all in, buying over 12,000 pudding cups. And get this, the most brilliant part. He donated all the pudding to charity, and in exchange for the food, they had volunteers peel off all the barcodes for him. He even got a tax write-off. Just genius. A more modern travel hack you might have heard of is hidden city ticketing. It's kind of weird, but basically, airlines price routes based on how much competition there is, not how far you're flying. So a flight from New York to LA with a layover in Chicago might actually be cheaper than a flight that just goes straight to Chicago. So you just book the longer flight and get off at your layover. Oh yeah, the airlines absolutely hate this, and they have fought back hard. They'll cancel your frequent flyer account in a heartbeat. They make sure your checked bags always go to the final destination, and they've even banned people from flying with them ever again. The loophole's still kinda there, but wow, the risks are way, way higher now. So now let's look at a couple cases where people didn't find a glitch in the software, but an exploit in the actual written rules of the game, from the NBA court all the way to the casino floor. So in the NBA, teams figured out that committing a quick, intentional foul to stop a fast break was, weirdly enough, the smart play. Why? Well, an easy layup on a fast break is worth 2 points. But if you fouled the player, they'd go to the free throw line, where, statistically, they're only likely to score about 1.5 points. It totally killed the most exciting plays in basketball, but hey, the math was clear. It helps you win. So, to bring the excitement back, the NBA just changed the rules of the game. They made the penalty for that kind of foul so harsh, one free throw plus the team gets the ball back, that the math just doesn't work anymore. The loophole was officially patched. And then, of course, you have the most famous example of all, the MIT blackjack team. The key thing you have to understand here is that card counting is not cheating. It's not illegal. You're not using some secret device. You were just paying an insane amount of attention and doing some really hard math in your head really fast. This kicked off a full-blown, high-tech cat and mouse game. Casinos went from relying on guys in the ceiling with binoculars to building these massive surveillance networks. Today, they use facial recognition and share databases across all the casinos. You get flagged as a card counter in one place, and boom, your face is instantly in the system everywhere. And really, all of these stories are part of the same timeless struggle, right? A system gets created, some clever person finds a flaw, the system adapts and closes the flaw, and the cycle just starts all over again. A perfect modern example is something called manufactured spending. For a while, the cycle worked like this. You'd use a rewards credit card to buy a gift card that works like cash. Then you'd use that gift card to buy a money order. You deposit the money order back into your bank, and then you use that cash to pay off the credit card bill. The results? You just created a ton of credit card points out of thin air. Of course, the banks have caught on, and now they use some pretty sophisticated data analysis to shut these schemes down fast. And that really brings us to the final thought here. As our world gets more and more complex, and it's run by algorithms that most of us don't really understand, you have to wonder, what new undiscovered exploits are already out there just waiting to be found? This game of cat and mouse is far from over. It's just moving to a whole new, much more advanced playing field.